Jim, you were there originally at Duc Phong. When you
October of '66. I was assigned to a B-34, and then they sent me to Dong Xuai or Duc Phong. I was the CA PsyOps officer since we had two lieutenants. Herschel Caldwell was there. He was the XO. I'm thinking the commander was Tommy Miller. I think that name rings a bell with me, but I can't be for sure. But Cliff Jordan took over shortly after I got there as the team commander.
But the camp had already been opened at that point.
Yes, but it was still under construction. It was a 5-pointed star, and there were still some buildings that needed to be built, and we had local Mountain Yard and Vietnamese carpenters, if you want to put it that way, because a lot of the construction was just done with bamboo, a lot of the buildings. I don't remember a lot. I remember Aloysius Doyle. He was our radio operator. Hatch was a medic. Oh, what the heck? I wrote his name down. I didn't bring it back up. I didn't bring it up here. The other medic.
Say the name.
Well, the other medic at the early time over there would have been well, Donahue left before you got there, so probably Harold Slusher.
Harold Slusher, yeah, okay. He was one. He ended up being one of the first warrant officers, medics. Yeah, PA. Herschel Caldwell was the XO. I don't remember the team sergeant's name.
Let's see.
Brennan?
Owen Brennan.
Is that it?
Yeah. All right, let's see what we got here. If for some reason I lost a big chunk of the map over here, but here it is. Let's zoom. 100%. Okay.
Is that Highway 1?
Would be Highway 14.
Highway 14. Okay.
Okay. So there seems to be a town of Duc Phong over here, but I believe the camp was located away from the town.
Yes, it was.
Right up here. And is this an airstrip of some sort?
Yes. We had a laterite airstrip.
Okay.
What kind of airstrip? Laterite?
Laterite. It's kind of a gravel red earth mixture that it could be formed fairly quickly. I mean, it didn't take a whole lot to build it, and then you could smooth it out, and it was a very, very sturdy runway.
Did you land? Did you land like a one?
Did you land
like a 130 on it?
Oh yeah, we've had 130s come in, brought in heavy equipment, bulldozers.
Was it that long? I looked like a very short strip of it.
Yep, no, it was, we had C-130s. They came in there with a was it a D7? It was pretty good size. It came in two pieces. They had to take the blade off because the blade was too wide to go into the tail end of the airplane. We had to use two airplanes to move the blade. They moved the blade and the track.
I remember that used to be the cutoff point, whether a 130 could land on it or not.
Yes, the 130, C-130s landed all the time there. The caribous were mostly what was used to carry food, carry passengers and so forth.
Yeah, a 147 they would land occasionally, but those were lot smaller aircraft.
Well, 123s would land on our airstrip.
Huh, that's a big plane.
Oh, I'm sorry, 124. No, wait a minute. The little 2-engine that was a 123. We didn't have any C-124s land. That's the Globemaster. We didn't even have those in Vietnam, I don't think.
C-123s was sort of a mini version of the C-130
Yeah.
in
And
capacity.
they put JADO, or what do we call them, bottles on the wings to help take off for short landing or short takeoff.
All right. Well, do you know anything about the strategic reasons for putting the camp in that location?
No, I don't. I know that we were close to a lot of BC action in that area. I mean, the village chief, the Vietnamese lieutenant colonel made a deal with the VC. You don't come within 10 clicks, I won't go beyond 10 clicks. And we had to have every operation we did had to be approved by the village chief. And we know that he was passing that information on because we crossed the 10-kilometer boundaries many times. And every time we did, we got into contact. And that pissed him off. It made him mad at us.
Well, looking at the map over here, you were probably closer to the 2-Corps, 3-Corps border than you were to the Cambodian border.
But we were a good ways from the Cambodian border.
Well, it was about twice as far as you were to the 2-Corps border. And
Budap was close to the Cambodian border.
yeah, if you went up north, directly north from you,
That's most of our operations were north.
but usually the corridor between the core areas was a good infiltration route. And if I wonder how much your counterpart had organized to leave that border area alone. Did you do a lot of patrolling toward the 2-Corps, 3-Corps border?
We went like I said, most of our operations were either, were due north, northeast.
Northeast on Highway 14.
Yeah.
To the border. That's the highway that went up to Bambi Tut and on to Khartoum.
Yeah.
Larry?
Say again?
Larry Rebner? You there? Do you have any comments on the location of Duc Phong and what it was primarily there for?
Hello?
Larry,
Yes.
do you have any comments on the location of Duc Phong and what was there to do?
Yeah, I don't, excuse me. We were about, I'd say about 10 kilometers or so from the district chief's headquarters there. I don't remember ever crossing the highway there. We may have, but I don't remember it. The airstrip was pretty much as defined. I don't know that we ever had any restrictions on operations. We could operate anywhere we wanted in our in our area of operations without approval. All we had to do was inform the B detachment of when we were going. We did quite a few helicopter assaults. It was there were some pretty mountainous areas you can see there to the east. I don't remember a lot other than that about the area.
What year were you there, Lawrence?
I was at Song Bay at the B detachment the first half of 1967, and then I moved out to Duc Phong in July and was there until Christmas.
Okay, you got there after I left.
Yeah, apparently I replaced Cliff Jordan.
Okay,
Before him, there was a Captain Walker. I can't remember his Mueller. Tommy Mueller was there when I arrived in December of '69. He left shortly after that and was replaced by Captain Walker. Then Cliff Jordan, who was the B detachment XO, went out and took over, and then I replaced Cliff.
yeah, I was there when Cliff came in. I think that the commander prior to him was the name Tommy Miller.
Mueller.
Mueller. Yeah,
Yeah, Mueller.
and then Cliff took over from him.
Yeah, Mueller got in some kind of hot water.
Yes, he did. I don't
Had
remember
something to do with the dependents living on post inside the wire or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was.
I think the what was his name? Group commander.
Was that Ladd or was that
Ladd? No, yeah, no, the one before Ladd.
Kelly was before Lash.
Kelly.
Lash Kelly.
Kelly came into the camp unannounced, and we had civilians. We had dependents living in the camp. But we had built a real nice, or they had built a real nice civilian village off post. And he said, I want these civilians out of this camp now. Kelly said that. I was there when he said it. So the LLDB counterpart, he ordered that they move, and they moved. Well, that night there were 8 Americans and 2 Vietnamese in that camp, because the soldiers went with their dependents. They weren't going to leave their dependents unguarded. They totally emptied the camp. Well, the next evening or the next day, Captain Mueller said, bring them back. And that word got back to Kelly, obviously. But Kelly never said anything more about it. But we never abandoned our civilians. They stayed inside the camp. And that village, it stayed empty. But I think he got into trouble with Kelly over that. But Cliff Jordan and I became very good friends, and he lived in Florida. He just passed. He passed away about a year and a half ago. He lost a leg. He had something. I don't know what his ailment was, but he had to have a leg amputated.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was also a good friend of Cliff and visited him at his home down in Florida. And of course, I haven't seen him for years. And then I heard that he had died. He was one of the older captains in the
Yep.
as far as I know, in Special Forces.
Yeah.
He must have spent some enlisted time, I would assume, and then went to OCS. But he had a good reputation there, and
Oh, he was a great guy, a good commander, a lot of common sense. Didn't get rattled, didn't get riled up. I never once heard him raise his voice. And I visited with him at his home in Florida several times because he's right there at Herbert Field. Yeah, I was saying, well, his wife died before him. Her name is Mary, and she died, and then he remarried.
I know you can't answer this because you were there before me, but I left right before Christmas in 1967, and I noticed that the roster, the team roster in 1968 showed a Captain Anthony Pryor and early 1968, and then a Captain Daniel Dawes right after him, also early 1968, and both are indicated as KIA. And I was wondering if anybody has any idea what happened to him.
I have no idea. I didn't know those.
KI at the camp, but Pryor was KI somewhere else. The difference is if they're bold, if they're in bold and they're KIA, then that they were killed at the camp. So Dawes was killed there. Let me look over here and see if I can. 3. All right, Dawes, it's 4/9/68. This is before he was killed. Okay. So 68, 12/67. 12/67. I'm gonna look for this. You go keep on discussing it. There, I'll look up Dawes here.
No, I left. I said before I was the third officer, so I was the CA PSYOPs guy. But then when they the XO at Zomcat left, I was moved to Zomcat in May of, I think it's around May of '67, and I became the XO.
Zomcat was closed in March '67.
Was it March of '67? Okay.
That's a Friday.
I was only there for about a month, and then we closed it. In fact, that was the first job, or the first just really task for me to do, was to organize and put that together to close the camp. And we took a lot of stuff out, but most of the stuff we just left in place because it was just earth and bunkers, and there was nothing really to take home. The ammo, most of the ammo was inundated with water, and it was not even usable. But we attempted to destroy all the mortars and the grenades that we had. We put rig charges and the demo sergeant, I can't remember his name, and I were the last two we lit a 10-minute fuse and ran to the helicopters and took off, and then watched it go off. And then
That's it at Somcat, when you're closing Somcat out.
yeah,
Right?
and then they called in B-52 strikes. And then even after that, I flew over it a few times with Cubby, and there was action going on there. I think BC moved right into there after we left, or they ended up still using it because it's right there where the Song Bay and the Song Dong Nai River came together.
Well,
Do you remember much about the time from the end of March 67 to maybe the end of June of 67 when you were there? I'm talking to Mr. Wild.
Yes.
They closed the camp in about the end of March. It was
Yeah.
the March 27th of 67, and then from there
We
went
moved
to different camps.
we moved everybody to Dong Xuai. We took over Dong Xuai as the team, as the resident team. The team that was there, I think it was a Captain Brennan.
Ambrose Brennan, who was in our discussion today.
He took his team and moved, and I can't remember if it was Chilin or Mila, but it was west of Dong Xuai.
That was Bunard. Bunard.
Is that it?
Bunard. B-U-N-A-R-D. I was at the B detachment when we opened that. In fact,
Okay.
there was it was one of the few airborne operations that
Yeah.
the 5th group did. That was B-34 opening up the camp and the bike force from the C detachment moved in for security the first until the detachment got it squared away.
Yeah.
That was Harvest Moon, I believe.
I don't remember that. But I know the entire team from Dong Xuai moved, and that's why we moved. A 342 moved up to Dong Xuai.
All right, look, you asked about Dave Dawes. He was on a company-sized CIDG patrol. They set up some ambushes, and the ambush party got in heavy contact. But then as that fire came about, he's moving around. He was pinned down, and he got up to lead an assault against the enemy positions. And he was mortally. So this is an operation away from the camp on the 9th of July of 68, but it was a patrol operation.
You say away from the camp. You mean outside of the camp?
Outside the camp, yeah. It was not it wasn't indirect fire coming in the camp. He was outside trying to set up an ambush, and the ambush was attacked.
And how about Dawes? Do you know anything about him?
And that was Dawes.
Oh, and well, then how about Pryor?
Pryor was killed somewhere else. He was not killed at the camp.
Okay.
He was not killed while assigned to the camp. No, maybe not. Oh, because he was killed at Dong Xuai.
Oh, he was killed at Dong Xuai. Okay.
He had moved from the camp in April, and he moved to take over the camp at Dong Xuai. And he was killed there at Dong Xuai. Now,
In April of 67?
in April '68,
Hey,
he was killed on the 27th of May of '68.
So he went from Duc Phong to Dong Xuai.
Right. And he was killed at Dong Xuai, he was killed at Dong Xuai, and Dawes was killed at Duc Phong. Now, I don't know what happened to Cash. He decided to disappear on us. Just when we're getting into this camp. So,
One thing, I don't know if you knew about this, but the Mobile Guerrilla Force moved into Duc Phong for training exercises and to do some drills because they were getting ready to move into War Zone D. And they walked into War Zone D.
from Duc Phong,
Yep. I believe they did.
kind of a long walk. isn't it?
No, I'm sorry. It was a helicopter insert, but they stayed for about a month at Duc Phong.
Okay, and what was the time frame on that?
What?
What was the time frame on that?
Oh, that was October, November, probably around December, January, December 66, January 67. I'm thinking it was, I was there about 3 months before that happened.
Yeah, they were back in Song Bay a few months later in the spring of '67. That was when that Air Force spy plane got shot down, and Westmoreland wanted the black box from it. So the Mobile Guerrilla Force, that was Jim Greitz,
Yeah.
Yeah, he brought his crew up to Song Bay, and they staged there because the plane was shot down not far from Song Bay. And miraculously, they did find it. They found the black box and recovered it.
All right, Blackjack 31 was a mobile guerrilla operation in
Yeah.
January. And it was initiated from an FOB at Duc Phong. And that was the 9th of January. So they went out and just milled around for a month. And that was their first blackjack operation
Yeah.
out there. And they recommended one place to put a camp. I didn't look at the coordinates of it. And they did not.
That was January '68.
67.
67.
Okay.
Okay. So reasonable information here. But I don't have the coordinates of where they were talking about putting a camp in somewhere in that area. I don't know if they actually did. I don't see any
I don't think so.
any name of a camp associated with it, or location associated with it. I can look it up, but it take me a while to work on the coordinates. I got a map that I can use the coordinates on.
Go ahead.
And that the other piece of that puzzle was that they were home in 67. Harvest Moon was the operation to open up Boonard. Or, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a Mike Force operation, the 5th Mobile Strike Force, but had some components of the 3rd Mobile Strike Force there.
Mr. Wild, did you know a Captain Mendoza? Mendoza?
That's Charlie.
I think
Yeah, Charlie
so, but
Mendoza.
I think so, but I don't recall when and where.
Yeah, he was he was the B team commander at Duc Phong. He just happened to be my uncle, and I just wondering if you knew him.
No, well, I remember, I recall the name, but that's about it.
Charlie Mendoza.
Yeah, I remember that
6'2",
name.
tall, good-looking guy.
Yeah.
Charlie and Ron Mendoza both had B teams in 3 Corps at the same time.
Yeah, I remember the name.
Yeah, just throwing out a name. It's my uncle. He's still alive to this day. I
Oh.
mean, all right, he hasn't died in the last month, I don't think, but he's back in Georgia still, or someplace on the East Coast.
Yeah, and my name is Jim. I don't, Mr. doesn't. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
no,
offend you. I'm
no
sorry.
problem.
I'm just trying to butter you up.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, it's good that you had the same opinion of Cliff Jordan, because he was really a great guy. And our team medic Hatch, he was the assistant medic. I think Harold was the chief medic. Hatch would sleep naked. We had a dispensary. We had a witch doctor who used to like to show up once in a while and perform his magic at night usually. There was a young girl brought in, had malaria, and they brought her to our dispensary, and Hatch worked on her for several weeks, and finally got her to the point where she was going to be okay. Well, one evening, the witch doctor from the village decided that he was going to make a visit, and he was going to kind of claim victory over the malaria. I just happened to be on watch that night, and I went down to the dispensary and I saw him in there, and he was using the hot vials and putting that on the skin. I didn't say anything. I just turned around and I went to Hatch's hooch and I said, your competition is back down at the dispensary. Hatch got up, like I said, naked as a jaybird, and ran down to the dispensary and forcibly escorted the witch doctor off of the premises. I'll put it that way. Hatch didn't like the fact that the witch doctor was showing up.
Let me see if I can roust out some other folks over here. But Jim, why don't you keep things going while I make some phone calls?
Keep things going. Okay. Let's see.
Let's talk about Charlie Mendoza.
We were going to clear an area of fields of fire, and so we had an engineer kit, and in that engineer kit had a beast of a chainsaw. And imagine trying to teach a 4-year-old child how to run a chainsaw is how you would teach a mountain yard how to run a chainsaw.
Oh my
And
God.
I finally gave up, and so I ran the chainsaw myself, because there was no way that we were going to have any progress at all trying to get so the mountain yards to clear some trees using a chainsaw. And we put up a bunch of food gas, and we wanted to make sure we had a good fields of fire, and that they would work the way they're supposed to work. So we had to clear some trees and some bamboo. We had problems getting permission to move or to take some bamboo, because that belonged to the village chief. So we had a couple of short rounds of WP out of our 4 deuce, and that took care of the bamboo. The white phosphor, the WP ignited the bamboo. We apologized, and we paid the village chief some money, and he was happy. But we had that field of fire was what it was supposed to be. And most of the camp at that time was the interior was split bamboo, and the roofs were some of them had tin on it, but some of them just had thatch. I'm sure that more tin was put on afterwards, especially in the warehouse. That's where we stored the rice and the rations and that kind of stuff in that little warehouse. My dad sent me an air pistol, the Benjamin, and I used to, with the flashlight, go through that warehouse and shine rats, and I would lay the rats out on the berm, and the mountain guards would police them up, and they'd have breakfast. For some reason, they like rats.
Yeah, you had a couple companies of mountain yards. I think you also had a couple of Cambodians, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we had one Vietnamese. We had 5 companies.
Yeah, we actually didn't have any Vietnamese that I recall, other than the LLDB. We had the Montagnards in the Cambodians. Colonel Kelly also had had this policy, at least I was told it was his policy, that all operations outside the camp had to begin at night and return at night. And a lot of the team members had a problem with that because, as you know, Duc Phong, the camp itself is pretty well fortified, being a 5-star, 5-pointed stars and heavy concertina and a lot of bunkers and all that, and pretty well fortified. But the gate was the most vulnerable part. And a lot of the team members objected to going outside at night when you could be ambushed right as you were starting to leave the gate. So I wondered if you had any problems with that.
No, but I recall we would move at night out and go outside the gate, and we didn't go very far, and we just RO in until it started to get daylight. We didn't like moving at night for some reason, and but that's how we did it. We would go out the gate. It didn't go very far, and we would RO in, and then we would take off at the first light.
I remember we would have to go out. The airstrip you were talking about earlier ran right past the gate, right outside the gate.
Yes.
And we would have to go out there and sweep it every morning, you know, for mines, etc. It was a good airstrip, but like I said, you couldn't really secure it except in the daytime.
Well, the dispensary was right there by the main gate. And then between the dispensary and the airstrip was an active minefield. It was there from the French, and it had never been cleared. And it was just fenced off, and you just didn't go in there because you didn't know what was in there. We never did get around to clearing it, as far as I know. But it was a good barrier. I mean, everybody knew about it, so they didn't try to come through it.
You mean the French from the Indochina War?
Yeah. There were still mines and munitions that was in that area from that time.
Yeah, I wasn't aware they had been in that exact area, but of course nobody ever talked about it anymore. How did your team get along with the LLDB there?
Good. Really, we did. The LLDB Sergeant Major spoke really good English. And he was a really good, I don't want to say it. He was an SF man. He knew what he was doing. And he had taken some training in the US. I think they did a really short experiment with bringing LLDB over here and training him, and he was part of that program. I can't think of his name now, but that's immaterial.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking of one at Song Bay. I can't remember the one out there's name either. Did you also have an advisory role with the district chief?
No.
You didn't have it. You didn't have any relationship at all with him.
All we had to do with the district chief was we had to clear all of our operations with him. That was part of the deal, and we didn't like that at all.
Oh, now that must have changed somewhere along the line there, because I would talk to him periodically, but we never cleared any operations with him. I would have had a real problem with that.
We did have a problem with that, but we couldn't seem to. As long as I was there, we had to brief him and tell him where we were going. And like I said, his rule was 10 kilometers. You didn't go beyond that. And his reason for that, we had a 105. We had, I think, 4 guns. The Vietnamese ran it. It was their guns. He said that was the length of our artillery support as his excuse. But we knew that wasn't. He had a deal with VC. You don't come within 10 kilometers, I won't go beyond 10 Well, we did. And every time we went beyond the 10 kilometers, we always got into a fight of some kind.
Yeah, I had never heard of the restriction from, as far as the district chief being concerned. It may have existed, and I wasn't aware of it. We very seldom went though beyond the range of artillery. We had the same outfit there that was the 105s that you did. And
They were good. They were good. They were some of the best artillerymen I've run across.
and we also had a couple of 4D mortars
Yep.
that we used for illumination and things like that. Very seldom had to fire them, but we did use them for illumination and things like that.
Yeah.
About the only member of the team that I know anything about right now would be Sergeant Hatch, Hatch. He was
Yeah. The medic.
he was a medic. Spent a lot of time delivering babies for the Montagnard women there.
Yep.
And,
He did a C-section.
yeah, well, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Yeah, he was there when I got there, and I guess left before I did, so I don't know. But he's still around someplace.
I just talked to him. I tried to get him to come up here. I told him about this naked encounter with the witch doctor, but he said that his son, who's from out of state, is visiting him, and he just couldn't miss that opportunity. I think he's was interested in the fact that we were talking about him, though.
Have you been able to make any contact with Steve? Have you been able to make any contact with any other of the Duc Phong team members?
The only one I've had contact with is Herschel Caldwell.
Yeah, he was before.
He was a Team XO.
Yeah, I don't know him. I've heard the name, but I don't know him.
Yeah,
On my email
Oh,
there,
what the team medic, not Hatch.
Slusser.
Slusher. Yeah. I've ran across him a few times at the SF conventions.
Yeah. A couple of people I've talked to, or I have emails for, or have called like contact, it might be from your time. Donovan Bird was one of the medics, and Raymond Sandy's a little late. Anyway, on your email, there are other email addresses for other people, and I certainly have more than the two that are here. I think I had about 18 different emails, but
you don't put the emails in the roster, I don't think, do you?
In the to box of the email I sent you has the emails.
Oh, really?
Really?
Okay.
So you got about 18 emails there. It has their name. You can click on individually on one of them, or just forward to everybody as you will. That's one of the benefits of doing it. I don't mix the camps, and so that the list is only going to members of your camp, and you'll get a different if you're on two camps, you'll get two different emails.
So the distribution list for the emails is where I should check out. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
And by all means, but make good use of it. So I've got a Captain Q as the Vietnamese camp commander at Duc Phong when Jim was coming in there. Moved to another time. See what I've got for let's see what we got for February of 68. Larry, that was your time?
Yeah, I left in October, November of 67. I left Vietnam.
Larry?
I left in December of 67. Yeah, I was there all of 1967, but left right at the end of the year.
Well, I'm already here at this date. Let's see what it says. Does not show the Vietnamese over here. Okay, let's go back to December. We'll go with November. Open with Word. Here's an operation in November of 69, where an operation from Duc Phong is reinforced by a company from Dong Xuai and another one from Duc Phong.
What year?
This is November 27th to 29th out of Vu Dap, 67.
We did we did several chopper inserts. We did one with the Rangers, the Vietnamese Rangers. It was a joint operation. I can't remember the date.
And Captain Kieu is still, yeah, end of 67. He's still the Vietnamese commander. And then, now Mendoza was B-35.
Those,
Yeah, but I don't know which Mendoza it was. Let me look here.
Duc Phong. Mendoza was at Duc Phong.
All right. Ronnie Mendoza was a B-33.
Oh, that's a different Mendoza.
Was B-35.
Yeah, there's a Charlie Mendoza also.
Yeah, I know you're talking about Charlie. I know that, but he and Ronnie, though they're not related at all, were shadowing each other.
Huh.
All through their SF career. And one time when I called Charlie up to ask the question about Ronnie, he told me, I'm not related to him.
When did you talk to him last?
A couple years ago. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't look like we've got a lot of people here on this camp. Tomorrow we're doing at the 1 o'clock Eastern, we're doing B-40, 341 Vu Dap. And then at 4 o'clock, we're doing Bunard.
Chester, what's his last name?
Garrett.
Garrett was commander of Vu Dap when I was there.
Do you know the story that happened to him after he got out of the Army?
I wouldn't surprise me a bit about him.
Well, actually, he was still in the Army. He was an Army major. He was murdered by his wife and son.
Really?
Yeah, they found his body in the middle of the desert somewhere in, I think it was Arizona. And he was in the middle of a divorce. And had another woman he was getting ready to marry. And well, he would have been retired, I guess, from the Army by then. But in any event, his wife and son lured him to back to the house, ostensibly to repair a dishwasher. And while he was under there, they bludgeoned him with something and killed him. Took his body out in the desert and left it there. He had a second son who was younger, who was aware of this, and being a good son, he bribed his mother and his brother and told them that unless they paid him so much, he was going to inform on him. And some way or another, they finally solved this, and the family members that were left, they all went to jail, but Chester was murdered.
Well, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Look, we have in the history of special forces, I think it's about 6 wives murder their husbands and 5 husbands murder their wives.
Really?
I don't remember what the exact count is, but there were more wives that murdered their husbands, but not by much. And that whole thing is a book in itself. Several group commanders or senior officers. One of them was one of the early group commanders. He spent a long time in jail. Then one of the guys who got a Distinguished Service Cross spent time in jail for murdering his Thai wife. Then he got the court to overthrow.
Oh, that's he was in Berlin. I was in the Berlin detachment, and he was there.
Yeah,
I can't think of his name now.
but it was
Yeah, I
like
know who you're talking about.
Czechoslovakian name. He was Czechoslovakian.
Oh man, I didn't think I'd ever forget his name. Yeah, his wife was found dead. She used to go fishing, and she was found dead long on the bank.
Yeah.
I'll think of it after a while.
The
I know exactly who you're talking about.
guy at Fort Bragg was sitting in his car with a friend of his, about ready to go into a strip joint in Fayetteville, when his wife came to the window and shot him dead in the car. So no, there's Garrett.
Marichek. Yeah, George Marichek.
Yeah.
My wife just came in there with that written down. Yeah, George Marichek.
And then another guy was killed by his stepson, and the stepson's mother, which is his wife. I sort of noted them somewhere in passing. I don't have a good list, but it's sort of an interesting thing that it's not a one-way street. And in fact, the weight seems to be on more females killed their husbands than husbands killed their wives in SF.
We used to make a big joke about when we were stationed near Fort Bragg about going down on weekends and fighting the Fayette Cong. That was the word that we would use. We would go down. We were going to fight the Fayette Cong this weekend.
But you were in Heidelberg, right?
What was that?
You were in Heidelberg.
Oh,
Yeah.
Heidelberg. Or Vietnam. They used to, some people would refer to it as Vietnam.
I know we used to fight the Fayette Cong on weekends.
Whoever was talking at the last session about, and I think was it you, Jim? No, it was somebody else talking about going to Vietnam. I tell people that if you want good Vietnamese food, come to Houston. It's a hell of a lot cleaner and a hell of a lot better.
And you save some money on the fare, on the plane fare.
I went back in 1995, I think it was, and I spent a month there. Didn't do very much. And I just got tired of all the posters of Ho Chi Minh around. It was depressing.
In 95?
95 or 97, I can't remember which one it was. Yes, the Vietnamese are very friendly to Americans, but the Vietnamese are not the Vietnamese government. Those are two distinct entities. And you have to keep remembering that. And the Vietnamese government is somebody who has never said anything that was reliable, at least to the Americans, and probably not to the Chinese or the Russians either. So trusting the Vietnamese government to do anything except look out for their own selves and their own rice bowls, because that's what it is. It's not a matter of communism. It's not a matter of ideology. It's a matter of the party gives them these benefits and they don't want to lose them.
No, they don't.
I think it's probably very true here. I think that's just the way communism is. That if you have a party that's autocratic, they're going to protect themselves and do whatever it takes to protect themselves, legal or not legal.
Aren't we all guilty of that?
No, I think that
Oh,
there's a very interesting
good for you.
piece in the newspapers the other day talking about the shooting in Uvalde, and he's gone from the person who loves his fellow citizen, his fellow man, and serves as a policeman, as a fireman, as a soldier, versus the person who says, I love me. And that's the one who was protesting the Vietnam War because they didn't want to go. And that's the ones that we are beginning to turn into across the board when you have policemen who won't go into a building because it's dangerous for them. They might get shot.
Well, that made me so mad.
But this is what's happening in our country. The people who are willing to do and take responsibility, even though there's a risk involved, are not there anymore.
Nope. Nope, they aren't.
A friend of mine just finished and put out a book, which I just bought and read. And it's called The Dancer and the Devil. And he started out just to write a book about Anna Pavlova, the ballerina, and Stalin. And he ended up really looking into the ideology that Stalin represented, and is still represented by Putin and Kim Il-sung and Xi in China. That they have supported themselves or defended themselves by running biological weapons laboratories, not only to kill masses of people in the case of war, but to kill individuals who oppose them in any way. And he really got into the history of it, from Lenin to Stalin, to Stalin's that being actually killed by Beria through the poisons that Stalin had done, right up to Putin, who was using the same weapons to protect his own position. And certainly the Kim family in Korea, remember that brother that was assassinated in the airport in Singapore? And turns out that Ping in China, that's what his father's job was. He was a murderer. He was the executioner. And not an executioner, it was a guy who took the axe, or the guy who ran the poisons.
Yeah.
Russians had a whole group of people in Paris at that time that was just killing off any of the emigres, Russian emigres that wouldn't go back to Russia and support the regime. So they had people in Paris who were there just to poison them, which they ended up doing to Anna Pavlova. So,
Yeah.
See that I'm going to have to leave in about 5 minutes, but I did want to say that probably the highlight of my time at Duc Phong was when General Fred Wayland, then a field force commander, stopped in at the camp. He was accompanied by his Sergeant Major Quinn, who was in the same B detachment with me at the 10th Group in Bad Tolz a few years earlier.
was that Frank Quinn?
Yeah, so I knew him quite well. And Quinn, General Wayland, who would later become the Army Chief of Staff just a couple of years later, stopped in at the team house, and we just sat there at the table and shot the breeze for a while. Very, very informal, very unusual. Not like Westmoreland, not for pomp or anything like that, but a very down-to-earth guy. And I was very happy when he became Army Chief of Staff, because the Army was in a lot of trouble at the time, and I think he was one that solved the problems. Also, I wanted to ask you, 1 o'clock boot up, 2 o'clock Bernard tomorrow, are they at the same website?
Same link.
Same link.
At
Okay.
1 o'clock Eastern and 4 o'clock Eastern.
Pardon me?
1 o'clock Eastern and 4 o'clock Eastern.
Oh, it's 1 o'clock Eastern boot up, 4 o'clock Bernard.
Bernard. Yeah.
Okay, I'll change that. I just might want to tune in and see if anybody shows up there that I knew. Okay, I enjoyed talking to you, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, well, nice meeting you over the
Same here.
Zoom,
Okay,
Take
See you
care,
later.
Peter.
thanks.
Okay.
Are we clear?
I'm going to stop the recording.